What if I told you that the President of the United States posted a picture of himself as Jesus Christ? Not a joke, not satire, not some random meme account on the internet. The official Truth Social account of Donald J. Trump, the 47th President of the United States, posted an AI-generated image of himself in white robes, surrounded by followers, healing the sick, with patriotic imagery swirling around him like he was the second coming of America itself. And when one of his own most loyal supporters, a woman who stood beside him at the White House, who went to bat for him publicly, who has built her entire brand around supporting his agenda, when she said, "That's not okay, that's blasphemy." Do you know what Trump did? He called her out by name, on camera, and said, "I'm not a big fan of Riley, actually." Now, let me ask you something. In what world does the most powerful man on the planet publicly humiliate one of his biggest fans just for telling the truth? That's what we're unpacking today, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to understand something about American politics that most people never stop to think about. Before we go any further, let me stop for a second. If nobody in your life is talking about this, and if your news feed is full of noise and nobody is actually breaking this down for you in plain English, that's exactly why this channel exists. NationPulse is the place where real people come to actually understand what's happening in this country. Not talking points, not spin, the actual mechanics of power. Hit that subscribe button right now, turn on the notifications, because what I'm about to show you goes way deeper than one picture on social media. This is about loyalty, about power, about what happens in America when you dare to tell the truth to someone who doesn't want to hear it. We're building something here, and you need to be part of it. Now, let's get into it. Okay. Let's walk this back and make sure we all have the full picture, because the media on both sides has been either blowing this way out of proportion or completely burying the parts that actually matter. Here's what happened, step by step. On a Monday, just a regular Monday in April 2026, an image appeared on Donald Trump's Truth Social account. In the image, Trump is wearing flowing white robes. He is surrounded by what appears to be sick or suffering people. His hands are extended like he is healing them. There is patriotic imagery in the background. Flags, light, almost a divine glow. And if you looked at that image and your first thought was, "That looks like a depiction of Jesus Christ performing miracles," you were not alone. That was basically everyone's first thought. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The image didn't just offend liberals or Democrats or the media. It offended conservatives, devout Christians, Trump's own supporters, people who had voted for him, who wore the hats, who defended him through 2 impeachments, through January 6th, through everything. And one of those people, one of the most prominent conservative voices in the country, decided she wasn't going to stay quiet about it. Her name is Riley Gaines. If you don't know who Riley Gaines is, here's the quick version. She's a former University of Kentucky competitive swimmer who became nationally famous for her advocacy against transgender women competing in women's sports. She has been one of the most visible faces of that cause. She appeared at the White House when Trump signed executive orders on the issue, and she has built a massive following, millions of people, on the back of her alignment with Trump and the America First movement. She is, by every definition, a Trump ally. And she said the image was wrong. She didn't mince words. On her show, she said, and I'm going to quote this carefully, she said, "God shall not be mocked." And that blasphemy is not something to take lightly. She said she believed humility would serve the president. She said she didn't regret her vote, but she stood by her criticism. And that's when things got really, really revealing. Now, let's talk about how the President of the United States responded to one of his most loyal supporters expressing a sincere, faith-based concern about something he posted. First, Trump tried to reframe the image entirely. He told reporters with a straight face that the image was supposed to depict him as a doctor. His words, "I thought it was me as a doctor and had to do with Red Cross, which we support, and only the fake news could come up with that one." He also said, and again, I want to make sure I have this right, "It's supposed to be me as a doctor, making people better." And I do make people better. Now let's pause on that for a moment, because I want to be fair here. Is it possible that Trump genuinely saw that image and thought it was a medical metaphor? Sure, anything's possible. But here's the thing. The image was deleted. If it was an innocent picture of him as a doctor, why delete it? If the fake news was just making something out of nothing, why pull the image? The deletion is the tell. You don't delete things you're proud of. You delete things you regret. And then a reporter asked the natural follow-up question, did you delete it because of the criticism from Riley Gaines and other supporters? And that's when Trump said it, the line that tells you everything you need to know about power in this country. I didn't listen to Riley Gaines. I'm not a big fan of Riley, actually. That sentence Right there. That's the whole story. Think about what just happened. A woman who fought for your agenda, who showed up at your White House, who built her platform defending your policies. She said something you didn't like. And instead of engaging with her point, instead of saying, I hear you, I understand the concern, instead of any kind of genuine leadership response, you publicly dismissed her. You used your platform to make her smaller. You signaled to your entire base, this is what happens when you don't fall in line. That is a very specific kind of power move, and we need to talk about what it means. Here's something I want you to understand, because it's actually really important for how we think about political movements in this country. When the image dropped, America didn't split into two camps. It split into three. The first camp was predictable. The people who already opposed Trump, Democrats, liberals, the mainstream media, they jumped on it immediately. Look, he's comparing himself to Jesus. This is megalomania. This is dangerous. And honestly, some of their critiques had merit, but they also had something to gain politically from making this as big a deal as possible. So take their outrage with some context. The second camp was also predictable. Hardcore MAGA supporters who decided that defending Trump on this was the hill they were going to die on. These are the people who said criticizing Trump for this image was playing into the enemy's hands, who said anyone who pushed back was basically siding with liberals, who treated loyalty to Trump as an absolute moral good above any other consideration, and including apparently their own religious convictions. But the third camp is the most interesting one, and it's the one that gets erased in most media coverage. Riley Gaines herself described it on her show. Her guest, Nick Freitas, a Green Beret veteran, put it clearly. He said there were people who criticized Trump not because they hate him, not because they want to undermine him, but because they have genuine values, including deeply held religious beliefs, and posting an image that equates yourself with Jesus Christ violates those values. Full stop. Freitas himself said, anybody that's depicting themselves in a picture where they're obviously making some sort of comparison between themselves and Christ, it is not a good idea. He added that Christ is someone to be venerated, not a branding tool. And here's what's fascinating about that third camp. They still support Trump's presidency. They still want the agenda. They're not defecting. They're not switching parties. They're just saying you can support someone and hold them accountable for specific actions. You can be loyal and honest at the same time. That concept, loyalty and honesty, is something that American political culture in this moment really struggles with. And Riley Gaines said something on her show that I think is one of the most quietly radical things a Trump supporter has said publicly in years. She said, this online base, the discourse that exists there, it makes you feel like you're the crazy person for saying those things. Read that again. She is saying that when she, a prominent, well-known conservative, expressed a good faith, sincere, religiously grounded concern about something the president did, the reaction from her own side made her feel like she was the problem. That's not a political base anymore. That's a loyalty test. Okay, let's go deeper, because I don't want this video to just be about one image on Truth Social. That would be a waste of your time. What I actually want to do is use this moment as a window into something much bigger, something that shapes American politics at every level, in both parties all the time. Here's the principle. When leaders stop being able to hear no, something dangerous begins. Now, let me be careful here, because I'm not trying to make this a partisan hit piece. This isn't about whether Trump is good or bad. This is about a structural dynamic that exists in power, and it matters regardless of who's in the White House. When someone holds enormous power, they get surrounded by people who have an incentive to tell them what they want to hear. That's just human nature. Nobody wants to be the person who tells the boss they made a mistake. The stakes are high. The boss has the power to reward or punish. So what happens? The honest voices get quieter. The sycophantic voices get louder. And over time, the leader starts to exist in a bubble where their worst instincts get amplified instead of checked. Now apply that to what just happened. Trump posted an image. Multiple people, including his own loyal conservative supporters, told him it crossed a line. He deleted the image, which means some part of him understood there was a problem. But then, instead of acknowledging the criticism gracefully, instead of saying, fair point, I took it down, he went out of his way to publicly dismiss Riley Gaines and signal to his base that pushback from allies would be punished, not considered. What does that do to the people around him? It teaches them a lesson. It teaches them that honesty is risky. It teaches them that loyalty is demanded, not earned. It teaches them that the safest thing to do is to just go along. And when the people around a powerful leader all start just going along, that's when you get real problems, not just political problems, real substantive governance problems, because you need people who will tell you when you're wrong. You need advisors who will say, sir, we probably shouldn't do that. You need a team that can push back. And if you've created a culture where pushing back gets you publicly humiliated by the most powerful person in the country, you're going to stop getting honest advice. Now zoom out. This isn't just a Trump thing. This is how power works. This is what we should be watching for in every administration, every political movement, every institution. The question isn't just, is my team winning? The question is my team capable of self-correction? I want to spend a few minutes on something that I think gets glossed over in a lot of political coverage, the religious dimension of this story. Because here's the thing. When we're talking about whether posting an image of yourself as Jesus is appropriate or not, we are not just talking about aesthetics or optics or even ego. For tens of millions of Americans, we are talking about something sacred. Christianity is not just a political affiliation in this country. It is a deeply held belief system. For Christians, and there are around 200 million of them in the United States, Jesus Christ is not a symbol or a branding element. He is the Son of God. He is the center of their entire worldview. He is the person they pray to, the person they believe died for their sins, the person they believe they will face in eternity. So when someone, anyone, but especially someone with the platform and power of a sitting president, creates or shares an image that equates themselves with Jesus Christ, even if it's just a meme, even if it's just AI, even if it's meant to be flattering, it lands differently for people of deep faith. It's not a joke. It's not harmless. It is, in the language of their tradition, blasphemy. Riley Gaines, and who is a Christian, I didn't say that lightly. She said, God shall not be mocked, because that is a verse from the Bible, Galatians 6:7. And she meant it. That's not rhetoric. That's conviction. And here's the political irony that I want you to sit with for a second. The Trump coalition has been built, in no small part, on the support of evangelical Christians and devout Catholics. These are people who voted for Trump because of his stated commitments to religious liberty, to Christian values, to protecting faith in the public square. They are a cornerstone of his political base. And when even those people, the most devout, the most committed, say this one thing crossed a line for us, and the response is public dismissal, what does that do to that coalition over time? I'm not saying it breaks. I'm not saying evangelical Christians are going to suddenly switch parties. I'm saying there is a tension there that is worth watching, because even the most loyal supporter has a line, and leaders who forget that tend to find out where it is at the worst possible time. Nick Freitas, the Green Beret veteran on Riley Gaines' show, captured it perfectly. He said he was glad the image came down. He said Christ is someone to be venerated. And he said there's a difference between critiquing the presidency and critiquing a single action, a difference that gets collapsed when loyalty is treated as an all or nothing proposition. That's wisdom. And it's the kind of thing that gets you called a traitor on the internet today. Now let's talk about the media for a minute, because the way this story was covered tells its own story. On the left, this became immediate proof that Trump is a megalomaniac, that he genuinely believes he's divine, that this is the most dangerous thing to happen to American democracy since the last thing they said was the most dangerous thing to happen to American democracy. On the right, specifically in the hardcore MAGA media space, there were two camps. One camp tried to spin the image as completely innocent and attacked anyone who criticized it as a liberal shill. The other camp quietly let it pass without comment, which is its own kind of cowardice. And the mainstream media, they spent about 48 hours on it before moving to the next thing. Here's what got missed in almost every version of this story. The most interesting character in this entire drama is not Donald Trump, it's Riley Gaines, because Riley Gaines represents something genuinely rare in today's political climate, a person who holds firm to their own convictions even when the social cost is enormous. Think about what she risked. She risked her relationship with the most powerful person in her political world. She risked her standing with the MAGA base, her audience, her platform, her livelihood. She risked being labeled a traitor, a turncoat, a fake conservative. She knew all of that was coming. She said she received so much pushback, and she didn't walk it back. She said, I do nothing for the approval of man. Our purpose on this earth is to glorify God in all we do. Now you can agree with Riley Gaines on policy, or you can disagree with her. You can like her or you can not like her. But in that moment, she did something that is genuinely rare in American political life. She held a principle above a personality. She chose her values over her team, and she got punished for it publicly by the President of the United States. That's the story. That's the story the media should be spending more time on. Not Trump posted a weird meme. The story is, what does it say about our political culture when expressing an honest, good faith, values-based disagreement with a powerful person gets you publicly slapped down? Okay, I want to bring this home because I know some of you are watching this and thinking, this is interesting, but what does it have to do with my actual life? Here's what it has to do with your life. The dynamics we just spent the last 15 minutes talking about, the loyalty test, the punishment of dissent, the bubble that forms around power, the collapse of the line between supporting a leader and worshiping one, those dynamics don't stay contained inside the White House. They filter down. They shape the culture. They teach lessons to everyone watching. When a sitting president publicly humiliates a supporter for an honest disagreement, it sends a message. That message is, disagreement is dangerous. That message is heard by politicians at every level. It's heard by staffers, by advisors, by members of Congress who might have been considering standing up on an issue. It's heard by ordinary citizens who see it modeled from the very top. And over time, that message does something to the quality of our democracy. Because democracy, real democracy, requires the ability to disagree. It requires the ability to say, I support the general direction, but not this specific thing. It requires leaders who can hear criticism without treating it as betrayal. When that capacity erodes, when the message becomes, you're either with us or against us, no middle ground, no nuance, no honest disagreement, what you get is not strength. What you get is brittleness. You get a political movement that looks powerful on the outside, but is losing its ability to self-correct on the inside. And here's the thing about political movements that lose the ability to self-correct. They tend to make increasingly larger mistakes because nobody's allowed to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. Riley Gaines said it herself in one of the most honest sentences spoken in American political commentary this year. The online discourse makes you feel like you're the crazy person for having a simple, sincere, honest reaction to something. That's not healthy, and it doesn't matter which party you're talking about. Any movement that makes you feel crazy for having an honest reaction has stopped being a political movement and started being something else, something that demands more from you than your vote. Let me give you the bigger picture. This story, Trump posting an AI image of himself as a Christ-like healer, deleting it after backlash, dismissing his own supporter for criticizing it. This story is a data point. It's one moment in a much larger pattern, and the pattern is this. We are living in an era of political personality cults, not just in America, around the world. Leaders in multiple countries have discovered that if you can get people to attach their identity to you personally, not to a platform, not to a set of policies, not to a constitution or a set of principles, but to you, you gain an extraordinary amount of power. Because when people's identity is wrapped up in your success, they will defend you not because you're right, but because your failure feels like their failure. And the most dangerous version of that dynamic is when the leader starts to believe it themselves, when they start to believe that the loyalty is infinite, that there are no limits, that they can do anything, and the base will hold, because the base is not infinite. The base is made up of human beings with faith traditions and personal values and lines they won't cross, and even the most loyal supporter has a breaking point. The question for American democracy, not just for Trump supporters, but for all of us, is whether we can maintain the basic political hygiene of being able to say, I support this person generally, but on this specific thing, they were wrong. That should not be a radical statement. That should be the default mode of citizens in a democracy. You can vote for someone and still think they made a mistake. You can be on someone's team and still hold them to a standard. You can be loyal and honest at the same time. Riley Gaines proved that it's possible. She took the hit for it, but she proved it's possible. And that matters because the health of this country doesn't depend on any one leader being perfect. It depends on citizens who are willing to hold leaders accountable, even the ones they voted for, especially the ones they voted for. Here's the bottom line. One image, one deletion, one dismissive comment, and buried inside it, if you know how to look, is a complete picture of how power works in America right now. This is what NationPulse does. We don't just give you the headline. We give you the mechanism. We give you the why. We give you the stuff that makes you actually understand what's happening, not just react to it. If this video made you think, if it gave you something to chew on, I need you to do 3 things right now. Number 1, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. This channel is growing because people like you are spreading the word. You are the reason this exists. Number 2, drop a comment. Tell me, do you think Riley Gaines was right to speak up? Do you think Trump's response was fair? Where's your line? I read every single comment. This is a conversation, not a broadcast. Number 3, share this video with one person, one friend, one family member, one person in your life who you think would want to see the truth instead of just the spin. One share from you reaches people I never could. We're building NationPulse into the channel that actually tells you what's happening in this country. In plain language, without the noise, without the agenda. You don't have to agree with everything I say. That's the point. The goal isn't for you to think what I think. The goal is for you to think. I'll see you in the next one.